Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success, and in our current climate, maximize safety while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week we're chatting about markets preparing for the new season with questions and comments from folks in our Farmers Market Pros community. Hi, I'm one of your hosts, Brijet Myers. I'm a longtime Farmers Market Manager, Vendor 101 co-teacher, and Education Coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Catt White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market Manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for the Farmers Market Pros new membership program.
So excited to get into that.
Yeah, it's coming along.
Very excited.
Talk about that a lot more soon. Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by MarketWurks. If you're ready to escape the stuffed 3-ring binder and the Excel spreadsheets and consolidate your market applications, invoicing, and reports into one convenient program, MarketWurks can help. It's easy to establish and update vendor profiles and market maps to give your website and your marketing some extra love using MarketWurks' simple interface. If you're ready to streamline your market management systems, contact Chris at MarketWurks.com. That's MarketWurks, WURKS.com. Or just find him on the resource page at FarmersMarketPros.com.
We love MarketWurks.
We do.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to Tent Talk. Today, we are talking about the challenges of reopening on-site markets after a long, strange year. We're sharing comments and questions from our Farmers Market Pros communities, and we connect with so many managers and vendors via our Instagram and our private Farmers Market Pros community on Facebook. Just gather all those questions. We hear so much. We hear so many tales.
We do.
Yeah.
So new market seasons are starting. Not for us.
Yes. Not for us.
Some of us are year-round markets, so we're just plunging ahead. Although even for us, it feels like a new season every few weeks as protocols keep changing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and our market, the vibe has shifted a little bit. There's more people. Here in San Diego, it feels like full-blown summer. The last couple of weeks have been really busy. Mm-hmm. Lots of people on vacation, lots of out-of-towners, and
we're opening a new section of our footprint. We had a huge footprint pre-COVID. After we were closed for a couple of weeks, it went down to a really small footprint. Well, small for us, and then gradually expanded. And now we're reopening one of our next to last block to get back to our original footprint. So we have a new section of the market that's opening this weekend.
Yes. It's fun to put those little reminder notes to not have cars park down there.
Yeah,
no parking
signs.
I'm really nervous about that, but I put a lot of fluorescent pink no parking signs, and there's about 1 trillion of them. So if someone parks there and gets towed, I'm not going to feel bad at all. Sometimes I feel a little bad. Not really, because we have so many no parking signs, but you'd have to really be having a little too many cocktails, park your car down there to leave it there overnight, because it's pretty...
They're bright.
Yes, very bright.
It's covered.
Pay attention, people.
Well, and in some cases, markets all around the country are coming back that never had an on-site market last year.
Yeah.
Either because their state protocols or local protocols didn't let them, or sometimes just because it didn't feel safe. We know of some markets that technically could have opened with a lot of safety precautions, but they just didn't feel good about it. Their staff didn't, their farmers and vendors didn't. So some of them are still kind of easing in. I know the Boise Farmers Market is going to wait until midsummer and see if they decide to go on site. They're waiting for all of their farmers and vendors to feel comfortable, and their staff. They're still doing pre-orders and pickups. But there's a lot of markets that are plunging back into the on-site market starting this month and next.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've been doing like a drive-through or a pre-order market since last March, trying to reopen an on-site market, if you haven't been doing that this whole time or you didn't do it last year, that would feel really daunting. I just think of us reopening like we were really in the thick of it when we reopened in person after being shut down for 1 week. But doing it now, if you haven't been doing this the whole time, it might feel really tough, even though there's other markets that you can see how they're doing things and kind of take a lot of great tips and get information about how to do it in a great way. We see a lot of people in our Farmers Market Pros community just like sharing ideas about signage and fencing and counting people in and out and having those exits and entrances separated. But I mean, if you haven't done it, it would feel like a lot right now. So that's why we kind of wanted to talk about this.
Yeah. Also, usually for seasonal markets, the opening weekend is kind of this big community event where there's a lot of advertising and markets, put marketing bucks behind making sure everybody turns out for their big opening weekend. Maybe they ring a bell. Maybe they get, they have performers or they cut a ribbon or, they have kind of a big ceremony. And so this year is probably looking a lot different from markets that maybe opened last spring and then immediately had to shut down, or markets that didn't open at all. So,
so those grand openings is just one level up from what we've all been dealing with, which is that whole counterintuitive thing about marketing where we want to talk about the market and we want to promote the farmers and vendors and we want you to come, but not really, and we want you to come shop and then get the heck out.
Yeah. Give us all your money and go home.
Yeah.
That's right.
You'll get food. We won't have to deal with big crowds. Everyone's happy, but it's a lot different than every other year past of farmers markets where it's like, come out and maybe you have like a face painter and you have a lot of live music and it's like, bring everyone bring all your neighbors. And so just that change in messaging, I think, is what really market managers need to focus on, how to do that right from the get-go, from your first day opening, like try to start out strong with that messaging.
Yeah. We actually heard from Rosalind up at the Colorado Farmers Market Association yesterday, and she was talking about, we had a conversation last year when we had closed for a minute and then reopened about how we were changing all of our messaging. So because there were a lot of people afraid about us opening, and so we were dealing with some hostility on our Facebook pages and getting nasty emails. In addition to the people that wanted us to reopen, there were a lot that were just fearful about it or resentful because their businesses couldn't open. Mm-hmm. So we had some of that. And one of the things that helped us and that I would strongly recommend for anybody reopening now is to really look at all of your forward-facing marketing, your website, the covers on your business Facebook pages, your Instagram photos in terms of new photos and things, and make sure that you're showing safe markets. So we realized, a couple weeks in that we still had this photo as a Facebook cover photo that was just a packed street with so many people shoulder to shoulder, no masks, and it wasn't the right message to be giving. And if you want to be careful that what you get out to your market is grocery shoppers and not just people coming out to get their face painted or take a selfie or, hang out and be shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors, change your messaging. It will be tremendously helpful for you. So you want to post pictures of markets that maybe aren't so full. What could be handy, so I know it's a challenge because some markets weren't open last year, so they don't have photos of widely spaced people masked up at their market. So what do they post now? So while we're always talking about you want to sift through your photos and only post the one that's at the correct angle so your street looks really full and you look really busy, you can use all those terrible photos from the past that weren't a good idea before.
Exactly.
So there's only backs in them, so you can't tell. Maybe those people have masks on, or there's a street that's not that full. Not the most inviting picture in the old days, but right now that's perfect.
Yeah, close-up images of produce or grocery items, or just like, I don't know, you could do, if you have aerial shots of your market before it opens.
Like a shopping bag full of produce and groceries, things like that. There's a lot of images that you can use that are not crowds and they aren't vendors' unmasked faces.
Right. I've gone back to, because we like to run pictures, we find a really effective angle is kind of shooting over the produce and seeing a really pretty produce picture or flowers or a vendor in the front with kind of a long view of a crowd in the back. And so I've been taking some of our old photos and cropping them so you have everybody from the waist down. So you can't tell that those people are unmasked. And you can see some action in the background, so you get the feel that it's a market.
Yeah.
But you don't see the farmer without a mask, and you don't see the shoppers without a mask. And you're careful about which shots you use, how the angles are, so that it looks like your street's really crowded or it's a little sparser and better distanced.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tricks, but that's really important right now, both to avoid negative feedback from people that are still fearful and also to kind of guide your marketing towards people that just want to come out and be careful and shop versus people that are really tired of there being no concerts and festivals and just want to come out and play.
Yeah. And also, like we were talking about a second ago, this usually the start of the market is kind of where a lot of farmers market managers use some funds, some marketing dollars, or maybe, you might reach out to your local news station or your local newspaper to get them out to come to the market. Make sure when you do that, if you're going to do that, that you're really clear and, or if you're writing a press release, make sure you clearly state the rules of the market within all of, that media-facing information. And if somebody does come to your market, make sure that you're wearing a mask. Make sure that you have people in the background wearing masks. If you are going to put an ad in the local newspaper, the Alt Weekly, make sure you're sending them photos where people are masked in the photos. Just making sure that the public really understands your rules, because it's a lot easier to enforce them if people know the rules before they get to the market. If they get to the market thinking that they don't have to wear a face mask, or they can touch all the produce, or they are going to see a face painter and a balloon artist and a musician, they're going to be bummed out. So if you're really clear from the get-go, and this really helped us, is we were hyper vigilant about our rules. And so as our market has gone on, people have just got used to it. It's a lot harder to enforce rules later. So start out being hard ass.
Yeah, for sure. You'll avoid a lot of that confrontation too. If you're posting pictures on your social media that are pictures from last season or whatever, where people aren't wearing masks, and then there are people that don't want to wear a mask or don't bring their mask, and they come to the market and they find out that it is required to enter the market, they're going to be really frustrated, and honestly, rightfully so, because if you're blasting your social media with photos of people without masks and you're not mentioning that you need masks, and then people come out to your market and then you ask that they wear one when they come in, they might be frustrated, and you want to just avoid as much confrontation as possible. Like, you'll get confrontation anyways. Try not to pile it on yourself by not being clear with your messaging.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if there are shoppers that don't want to wear a mask, but they're looking at your Instagram and seeing people with masks, they might say like, I don't want to go. Or they might kind of like glean out people that could potentially give you issues.
Yeah, weed those people out.
Self-select.
Be really clear.
Help them self-select.
Be really clear about it. Yes. We did get a Yelp review about someone said, I heard this is a dog-friendly market and I brought my dog and they wouldn't let it in. And I had to reply and say, where do you see that this is a dog-friendly market? It might have been like a review posted somewhere else. I go, but we have always been crystal clear about our messaging, and we remind people often that they can't bring their pets to the market, because we don't want to have that situation where someone does bring their pup for a fun day at the market, which I know we've talked about before. I don't know why people do that, but show up there, because then you're just you're just making a confrontation. You're creating a confrontation if you're not addressing those kind of hard rules that you have. So I was able to respond to that person and say, it's very crystal clear on our website, on all of our social media. If you look at the rules, if you would have messaged us and asked, we're very clear about that rule. So I'm sorry that you saw someone else's feedback on it, but that did not come from us.
Yeah. So hard.
Still left that review up there. I'm a little bitter.
We actually had somebody ask the other day in one of our groups about how do you deal with a bad Yelp review.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's really difficult.
Yelp is so hard. It is.
Actually, I will say Yelp is actually helpful. People do look at Yelp. You have to understand as a business owner that people do rely on Yelp to find out where to go, where to shop, where to eat. That is just the way of the world. But there's just, nothing you can do about what people post. So I always respond, and I know we've talked about this before, but you leave a response, and so people looking at your page can see what the business owner says, in response to people that are posting things, if it's negative. Also, if people leave a nice review, I make sure to say, thank you so much, we appreciate that. And so it's just kind of another conversation piece, but you have no control over your Yelp. You can upload your own photos, and that's helpful. And whether or not Yelp lets those float to the top, you never know, but you can, keep those photos in there so it says photos by owner, so you can kind of have a little bit of, personalization on that end. But
yeah. And just like with the people at the gate, when you're on Yelp, when you're on Facebook, when you're on Instagram, try really hard. It's difficult some days to not get defensive and just answer calmly and repeat the guidelines, and that we're doing this to remain safe and not to aggravate you. And
it's not personal, buddy.
No.
No matter what name you just called me. It's not personal.
Or as you say, do you kiss your mama with that mouth? I'm going to say that to someone. Or use your manners. Please. I'm going to start saying that to old men that are rude to me. Oh, can you please use your manners?
Like you say to your young children?
Yes, I'm going to use the same tone that I use with my 6-year-old. I'm going to try that. I'll report back.
All right, see how that goes. It's complicated, too, right now, because the counties are changing phases,
Yes.
going up and
Yeah.
down.
my
Yvette
Lanta.
from the Yakima Farmers Market mentioned this.
Yeah.
Our recommendation on that, I mean, we're kind of in the process of that now. We've changed tiers twice. So if you're in an area that has tiers of compliance, we started out really high. We came down to red. Then we went to orange. We're still in
And I
orange,
heard
right?
that the governor just said no tiers exist once we hit June.
June 15th, there's not going to be any tiers anymore. And,
Only
and the way it
tears
was,
from our eyes.
the way it was phrased,
At the market.
honestly, and I hope he refines this between now and June 15th, but it was June 15th, we're going, and maybe he didn't say it like this, maybe it got paraphrased by somebody in the
I
news.
probably just saw like an infographic somewhere.
Probably,
so
yeah.
it's
I've seen it in the news on
Don't
in
get your
a few
news from the
places,
memes.
right? But it said, Governor says June 15th we go back to pre-COVID conditions, except masks will remain mandatory. I thought, please don't say it like that.
Please don't say that. That is very difficult.
It's going to be very confusing for people.
We're reopening, but the
Except-
fence is still going to exist around the market, and you still have to wear your mask.
And
Well-
you can't hug anyone.
And don't touch anyone. Yeah, and that's sort of part of the point when the counties are changing phases. Like we dropped for a little while, but then we shot back up.
Yeah.
So, being that I'm still a little shell shocked about that, even though we're now in the orange tier, which lets us open up to a little bit wider extent than we have, I'm actually still kind of blending us between red and orange and not going all the way to what they say we can do, because if we drop back, like Justine was saying, if people know the rules, they respond well to that. If you surprise them, not so much. I really don't want to make things really loose and then have to go back, because it's really hard to get people back once they've been allowed to do something.
And not just shoppers, like vendors too. Vendors are busy. A lot of vendors have different staff. That it's not necessarily the same staff member every single Saturday at the market. Sometimes it's alternating, or they have other people working for them. And our staff, it's hard, So if you kind of don't get too excited about totally reopening and just take it a little bit more slowly, really be clear when you are going to make a decision. And I think that we've, I'm patting us on the back. I think we have done a good job of just kind of taking it slow and not making rash decisions. And it has made it easier on us because we're not boomeranging on stuff. We really haven't ever had to walk something back.
Right,
Yeah.
because we've been
And-
careful about going forward too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. People have said like, "Oh, this was the entrance, and now it's the exit," and I'm like, "No, it's always
maybe
been
like
this. Maybe
seriously like 11 months ago.
Yeah,
But
in your
I always tell
imagination.
them like, oh, it's been a while since you've been back to our market.
Yeah.
Because they try to
been
act
a
like
year.
they shop here every week.
It's
and
so
really,
funny. When you get people at the gate, you'll say, have you been here before? So you know how many rules you have to repeat. And they'll say, oh, yeah, a couple years ago. It's like, yeah, no, okay, you really haven't been here. You've been in that other market from 2 years ago.
she doesn't exist anymore." But yeah, retraining vendors and customers, and making sure that everyone's really clear on the messaging and the rules. And, I think it'd be difficult to say, oh, okay, we're in this tier, like, let's let 1 million people in, and, like, everything is an entrance and exit. But then we have to take the long view, and I think we need to take those lessons learned of the last year. If our cases spike again in this area or whatever area you're in, and then the city or county is taking you back to some more restrictive rules, retraining everyone that you've already trained to follow these kind of rules, I mean, that would be a nightmare. So just make it easier for yourself. Like,
Ease in.
help me help
Ease
you.
in really slowly.
Ease it
Yeah.
on. Believe me, you'll get way less pushback, and people will still push back. We've had people the last few weeks like, hey, we're in the orange tier. Why are you guys still doing this? Or, that restaurant's fully open. Why are you guys still doing this? And it's like, we just explain like, hey, we're just taking it slow so that we don't have to change rules so often. And don't
Yeah.
worry, like one day, buddy, like we're going to get back there. Like we can see it. The light is at the end of the tunnel, but just hang in there with us a little bit longer. And usually people are cool with that,
Yeah.
except for Crazy Lady. But
Yeah, every once in a while we get one that's not so much fun, but generally they listen. And being able to tell them that these are our city guidelines is helpful. We've talked before about how frustrating it is that there are no consistent guidelines for the state and the county and the city so
Yeah.
that people could just know what to expect and have the same experience at every market. That's not happening, and that's part of the confusion and part of the frustration for the customers. And we're also just dealing with still some pandemic fever. Callie from the Ithaca Farmers Market was saying that her biggest challenge right now is just balancing normality and vigilance as people get vaccinated, because as we get vaccinated, we seem to think that that's magic. that
I mean, it is a little bit.
It is a little. I mean, we're big time
Science is magic.
happy about vaccination.
Yeah.
The Napa Farmers Market did a really cool campaign on Instagram where they have a sign that says, "I've been vaccinated. Beat COVID," with a picture of beets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just right up my alley. And I love it. It's adorable. We have people that are wearing pins that say, "I got my shot." But they do also have the effect of making people overconfident. So just because you have a pin that says, "I got my shot," you still can't come into my market with no mask. and
Yeah.
you still have... We still don't know. Science still doesn't know even if you're vaccinated, can you carry the disease from somebody else to someone who hasn't been vaccinated. And so we have to just go lowest common denominator. Everybody's got to play it really safe. Yeah. And absolutely, Kelly, and all of us, that's really hard to impress on people when many things are feeling like they're going back to normal, and we do feel safer than we did a few months ago.
Yeah, and even though California is opening up vaccinations to, more and more people in the, general population, there are a lot of people that don't have access to vaccinations. There are people that, because of other health issues, cannot get vaccinations. So it's kind of on all of us. So those of us that are able to and have access to vaccinations to continue to implement safe practices in public, and as market managers and market staff, kind of just making sure that we are keeping all of our vendors, all of our staff, all of our shoppers safe, even though as essential workers we've had access to vaccines for a couple weeks now. But yeah, we just have to keep being safe and being good models for everybody else. Even though I wish I didn't have to wear a mask all day long at the market, because it's starting to get hot.
Yeah. I mean, customers complaining that they have to wear a mask while they shop. Sometimes, if I'm talking to them, I'll say, okay, well, I am wearing this mask for 9 hours today, and I'm standing outside. Like, you get to shop and go home and take your mask off when you get in your car. I am wearing my mask all day because I want to keep you safe. Can you wear your mask while you shop so that you can keep me safe and keep our farmers and vendors and other shoppers safe? And then, usually it's like, oh, okay, like, we're all doing our part here. Let's try to just work together, just do it a little bit longer, So taking that approach, I think, is, we don't know what kind of information these people are coming into the market with. Maybe they saw some wild news article that said that everyone can just rip their masks off and burn them and throw them into the air like graduation hats, like we've graduated from COVID.
That does seem to be the message some people are getting.
So you never know. Fly as high as your hat.
That's right.
Nest. Yeah, but I mean, you just never know. I try to have a little bit more grace with people. Maybe they saw a YouTube video that told them that.
I read an AARP article as that woman explained to me at length last week. The AARP says she doesn't need a mask.
Okay.
And first of all, I think maybe she's misinterpreting because I think the AARP is usually somewhat sensible. But I definitely know what people mean, and we always just refer them back to, we go by CDC guidelines, and honestly what we respond to is our city permit requirements.
Yeah.
Because we all want to be open so that you can come visit us with your mask on.
It just always really comes down to that, and I try not to get into like politics or like vaccine safety and all those kind of conversations, because everyone really does have their own kind of view on that, and it's been a very complicated year with information coming from different places, and even if it's not something that I personally agree with, I just really kind of refocus the attention to, okay, you're standing here, you're trying to get into my business. This is a private business. Mm-hmm. I also have to abide by city and county regulations, or they're not going to allow our business to operate. These people are all here trying to make sales, and you need to come here and get food. Like, let's get down to just the nuts and bolts of why we're standing here. If you want to come in and shop, you just have to put that mask on right now. Check back in a couple months and see if we're still requiring them if you really can't or don't want to shop with the mask. Yeah. And that's just really all the conversation that I can have. I can't do a political conversation every time someone wants to come in. It's just too time-consuming and exhausting. And you know what? It's been 13 months and I'm over it. I'm not having these conversations anymore. So
well, you know what? We're not epidemiologists either.
Exactly.
So we're just following the rules.
I can't diagnose you, and I can't, we can't get into that kind of stuff. So this is where we're at. If we don't require that everyone follows these rules, the city may revoke our permit, and that's what we're working with right now. So let's go. There's a mask mandate in this state. That's where we're at. And even states where, the governor may have lifted lifted the mask mandate.
Or some places where nothing's ever happened. You know,
Feeling really special.
We have one member of our Farmers Market Pros community that every time we get into a conversation about, are you allowed to serve coffee at your market yet? No, we can only do takeout. She says, wait, are there places where you can't serve coffee? So she's clearly in an area where there have been no restrictions whatsoever.
Yeah.
And maybe that's been biased. It's like you're in like a really small town or
Right.
something like that. I mean, if it's been safe in your area, there are places like that where it's just, there hasn't had to be a lot of restrictions placed on your market. I understand those places exist and it's been like pretty safe without them. But, you know, if you're in a place where those rules exist, or if your governor has like lifted the mask mandate, or if businesses have started like kind of reopening, but you feel that you or your customers and your farmers and vendors are best served by keeping those rules in place, and you feel like a lot of your shoppers would stop coming to your place of business if you did not require masks. I mean, in a lot of places, that's your choice as a business. So you can kind of make that call for yourself and for your market. And for those market managers, I really feel for them because you don't have like a state rule to be backing you up at all. I mean, we have, at least in California, there's a mask mandate. So
Right.
it's like we can kind of, that backs us up. If you're in a place where there isn't a mask mandate, but private businesses are allowed to do what they want with those rules, that must be way more difficult. And so kind of just standing by whatever your rules are, reiterating that it's for the safety of your staff, your farmers, your vendors, fellow shoppers. You know, these are the rules of this private business. If you don't want to abide by those rules, you know, you might lose that customer for the day, but I can understand that would be really tough.
And even if you are in a situation like that, as a market manager, you always have jurisdiction over your staff and your vendors. And you know, heaven forbid somebody with COVID comes to your market, but at least if your staff and your vendors are masked up outside, keeping their distance with each other, there is some, you know, safety guards for them. And you just have to be really clear with the people that you can kind of control,
Right.
making sure that they're staying safe, following precautions. And yeah, it's hard to control the shoppers, especially if you're not in a place where your, you know, local government is enforcing rules. But
and being outside, people are really frustrated that we're
Yeah.
outside. It's not, you know, even the CDC says like it's mostly transmitted indoors in a closed area over a, you know, significant amount of time. But it's just, you know, we have to just kind of put that safety first until everyone's real sure on that, because the CDC has also said, like in the beginning, that we didn't need masks. So it's like, you know, they're still filling things out. Let's just give it some time so that we can stay on this trajectory toward the positive instead of just guessing what we should be doing and popping back, like going back to bigger restrictions, because that's only going to be worse for everybody.
Well, because a lot of markets, too, in the past, and in fact, in our permit, we're called a special event. The special event department is the one that gives us the permit to be on the city street. Well, in a lot of places, they're still not allowing festivals or concerts or major sporting events. And really, if you've got a busy market, even though you're outside, you're attracting that level of crowd. And so you've got to, you know, do something to try and control that.
Be the responsible party.
That's right. Let's be the grown-ups here.
Yes, where everybody's grown up. What else?
What else? We had some markets that are talking about as they're reopening their season, they're having to do it in new locations. That's I would love to say we're changing subjects, but actually a lot of that is still related to COVID. So some locations just aren't logistically viable if you have to monitor the level of the crowd. There are some locations that just physically can't be. You can't secure the perimeter. You can't set up a way to count people in and out. Yeah, so I think Ellie over at Nourish Knoxville is having to take what used to be a single location for her smaller Wednesday market and her larger Saturday market, and they're having to switch into two completely different locations because the location that works okay for Wednesday, if they use the entire footprint, they're not able to close off the perimeter and count people in and out. So they've had to move their Saturday market to a completely different area, which just means you and your staff have to be trained to set things up differently twice a week, which is frustrating. And I'm sure the vendors and farmers are, when the vendors and farmers don't like to be moved 5 feet, do they want to be moved across town? Probably not. So,
and the people that shop at their markets are probably frustrated that they have to, or, sometimes we would have this with our Saturday and our Wednesday market. Some people would come on Saturday, but then they forgot something and like, I'll pick it up on Wednesday or Saturday. would get really crowded, and so they would come on Wednesday to shop, and that
it's
just
just
must
easier
be
to get them
hard.
back all in one location. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's frustrating, but I think a lot of people are having to deal with that because of logistics, or there's certain sites where the site that you're on is owned by a private business or individual, and for risk management issues, they don't want a public event on their land. I've seen a lot of people have to change locations because of that. So there's a lot of that going on, and our hearts go out to you. It's hard to move a market, and it's hard to take your 2 market a week and split that into 2 different locations. That sounds really tough.
Logistic nightmare. Yeah, and we had an episode back in December with Allison Einerson on relocating her farmers market. She's the director of Urban Food Connections in downtown Salt Lake City, and she was talking about moving her whole market, and she did she gave a lot of great information about things that she did to kind of like get her shoppers used to that and the vendors. And so if you want to go back and listen to that episode too, that could be really helpful for these new markets that have to kind of relocate to get to their opening season, or for whatever reason, if they're in a place where businesses were shut down and so they were using their parking lot, but then those businesses are reopening, those kind of things. It's, making that shuffle is never easy. We've had to move for construction projects and things like that, and that was difficult enough. So with all the layered complexities of pandemic still going on and new seasons and opening up, and trying to figure out spacing, it just sounds like a really complicated thing. Yeah.
One more thing that makes it harder.
Yeah.
So, talk to your vendors and your farmers about marketing. Marketing's everybody's job. The more you throw tags back and forth on social media and talk about each other, the more traction you're going to get for everybody. But maybe talk to them too about how they want to do their messaging so it syncs up with yours. Encourage them to show pictures of people masked or not show people at all. Just do that nice close-up of their beautiful product.
Yeah.
And then any time that you're opening a new market or going back into a new season, there's some basics you want to think about. If you've got farmers that have vehicles parked near their stands, encourage them to wash those vehicles, maybe add a banner, add a big sign, right? Close that tailgate and keep things tidy during the market so that people aren't just looking at a mess. So, some of those basic, let's do a little spring cleaning as we're opening our spring markets and make sure that everything's nice and tidy. Have those food makers check their tablecloths. If they have a chance, maybe kick up the size of their banners or make their banners prettier. Everybody involved, market managers, farmers, food makers, check those tents out if they've been in storage for a while. Watch for tears. You can take out that hose and blast them and put them out in the sun to dry so they're clean. Nothing worse than a dusty, dirty tent that's been in the garage for the winter.
Yeah. Spring cleaning on that equipment, for sure.
So much just to starting a new season. It always, it's a little bit baffling for me because we have year-round markets. It always seems to me like starting a new season would be like starting a whole new market. So all the things that you have to do to ramp up for a new market, you're doing it every year. You have my admiration and my sympathy out there if you do that every year.
For sure. I think customers are excited, though, and I would think that seasonal markets that have been around for a little while, where they have a good dedicated customer base, probably especially this year, those customers are ready for you. They're excited. They're ready to get back to some kind of feeling of normalcy, even if you have COVID restrictions and they have to wear a mask. It might be really great for them. That might be the only place that is available in your area or that they would frequent, where they can get out and see their community and talk to people that they haven't seen in a while. So you might be really giving your community in your area a gift, reopening these markets and bringing all that fresh food back to your area and just, reminding yourself that you're doing something really great for your neighbors.
Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke about the abuse that we get from people that don't want to follow the rules, but the other thing that we hear over and over that we should try to remember, try to put front of mind as opposed to those few kind of cranky folks, is that we hear oftentimes from people big thanks for providing one little element of routine and normalcy and community in their lives every week that they can't get very many places right now. And so many of our regular shoppers are grateful for that, and our vendors and farmers.
Yeah, and every time we do have a confrontation, every single time there's been some crabby customer, as soon as that's over, there will be, 3, 4, 6, 12, 20 customers in line or standing around that say, thank you. Thank you for holding the line. Thank you for making this a safe place. I'm grateful to be shopping here and following these rules so that I can get these food. The vendors, the farmers, they thank us for kind of making it a safe place. So if you're hearing the noise of people not wanting to follow the rules, that may feel to you that, oh, maybe you should have less rules, or maybe they're right about something. But try to remember that for every person that's complaining, there's 100 people that are grateful that you're making it a safe place for them, because that's what farmers markets should be, a safe place to get nutritious food that supports your local community. So just keep your mission statement at the front of your mind, and don't let all those noisy, rude people ruin your day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have fewer and fewer as we go along. I mean, I think now they're a little bit more salient because we'll have a really good day, and then right at the end there will be one where months ago they were all day long, all the time.
I blame our neighborhood champagne brunches.
Yes, so people get a little buzz and they feel
entitled.
Like they got some courage to come yell at us.
But for those market managers that are reopening for the first time, just if you have a tough first couple weeks, just keep going. You're doing something really important. Your regular shoppers will get used to it. Mm-hmm. They'll be thankful for it. And it might just be you need to remind people on social media of the rules, or maybe you need some more signage because you only had a few signs and people didn't see them, or, just don't let the bad apples intimidate you into making restrictions lessened, or, just keep on doing your thing, and people will get used to it. The people that really value your market, that will come back every week, they'll adjust.
Yeah, everyone's having to adjust in some way or another. So just recognize who you want at your market. Who's your target audience? Is it people that are going to be screaming at you? No. Because if they're not screaming at you about masks, they're going to scream at you about something else.
Yeah.
You're going to tow their car. They're going to, they had to park really far.
Or they're going to bring their dog.
They're going to bring their dog. Or someone was out of something they wanted. They're going to be crabby. These are crabby people. And it's just, they have a big outlet for it.
I don't think we're putting our cheerful customers front of mind. We're slipping. We're
sorry.
slipping.
Now I'm just really thinking about it.
It's because it's Thursday. I'm starting to think about Saturday.
Right?
We need to record on Monday when we can look off into the distance at the next market and still have that positive feeling.
It's some people have Sunday scaries, and I have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday scaries.
We're doing good work.
Yes.
Everybody out there who's listening, remember, you're doing something important for your community. You're helping people eat better. You're keeping farmers farming so that the next generations can keep eating healthy, nutritious, tasty food.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. We do want to hear your feedback about how, if you've already opened your market, or if you're about to, if you're in our Farmers Market Pros community on Facebook, let us know how those first days are going. Maybe you're having a bunch of happy customers that are all following the rules and just enjoying, being back out there, or you're having kind of some challenges that we haven't addressed because we don't know what it's like to reopen a market, and at this point, since we've been open this whole time. So definitely give us your feedback. I want to hear how everyone's, how it's going for everybody, different parts of the country.
Or if you've found creative ways to safely bring back musicians, or safely bring back chef demos, or if you've found ways to continue to make your market fun without encouraging too many people to come out. I mean, we were kind of hardcore about that, no fun at our markets. But maybe some seasonal markets have found ways to do that safely and creatively.
And slightly smaller markets. I think it's a little bit easier. So some of you that have medium to small size markets, you're probably able to not have to be the fun police, to still let it be fun.
Oh, yeah. We get called the fun place a lot. We're in a big, busy, downtown urban market area, and our market's big and busy and been around for a while. So, but I do love to hear from other market managers that have really great neighborhood markets where it's their community comes out and it's a good time, and you don't have these wild tourists making trouble at your market. And, how is that going for everybody during these times? Because you still have to be safe, but if it's people that and people that, shop every week, I want to hear how that's going too. I'm imagining it's much more pleasant, so I'm jealous. I want to hear about it. All right.
Let's keep feeding people.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. And big thanks to MarketWurks for making life easier for farmers market managers on the application processing side in these crazy times when there's so many other things to do. Find them at MarketWurks.com, Market, WURKS.com, or make it easy. Go to the resource page at FarmersMarketPros.com and click their logo.
Farmers markets are all about community, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. Please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're just getting started in farmers markets, check out our Vendor 101 online course at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcast, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. If you are listening on YouTube, give us that thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we will have another great episode next week, so tune in.